Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm switching out the cartridges on my respirator because it's time to move from home improvement to resin sanding. I'm finishing a special project today, which is sanding all the pieces of my very first doll body sculpt so I can put it together and see how it looks. I printed this a while ago using Resin BJD resin, but I've only just now had time to sit down and sand everything. I begin the process with metal files because it takes the raised support spheres off really fast. But even with metal files making that part fast, the whole job takes a long time, and it ultimately took me about 2.5 hours to completely sand the supports off this doll. I didn't bother sanding the surface off the printed resin as it was pretty smooth, and this is just a prototype project anyway. I'll just pause for a second here to say that because this is for a ball-jointed doll, which is an art doll, the doll is sculpted with anatomical correctness in mind. So if unclothed art dolls that resemble the bare human form bother you, you'll probably want to skip this video and come back when it's time to make her some clothes. While I've done plenty of doll heads in Blender and Nomad, I've never sculpted a doll body before, and I made this one from scratch using Nomad. I wanted to try to make a more curvy, chubby doll body because I'd eventually like to have one in 1/3 scale, but working in 1/4 is more reasonable when doing prototypes because it uses a lot less resin. It takes about 1 full bottle to print this prototype in 1/4 scale, and a bottle of this resin is about $50, so it adds up fast even when you're just printing small parts. Fortunately for me, Resin sent me enough resin to complete the project even though I had to reprint a couple pieces. They also sent me some of their resin in different colors, which I'm looking forward to testing, but I can only print in warm weather since my printer has to be in the garage now, and it definitely has not been warm lately. I'll be doing some more resin testing in the next few weeks. I have another brand to try, but the weather hasn't been agreeable just yet. In the meantime, I'm just seeing how this goes together so I can see what still needs to be changed or adjusted on this doll body. I use the metal files first to knock off the support marks, and then I use a 320 grit sanding sponge and 600 grit wet or dry sandpaper to remove the marks from the files. While chubby or curvy dolls have become a lot more popular, I noticed that almost all of them have smaller upper bodies and slender arms. I understand why, since I just sculpted one myself, but I specifically wanted a doll with more chubby arms too. The reason most sculptors avoid this is because, unlike human flesh, resin has absolutely no give or squish to it. So the range of motion you get with the elbow is severely limited by having a thicker arm. You end up having to choose between artistic form or functionality, and most people go for function. I wanted to go the other way and sculpt a body that focused mostly on the aesthetic, knowing that it wouldn't have as much range of motion as the dolls other people were making. I've often made that decision for my collection because my dolls spend most of their time just standing on display, so a wide range of mobility doesn't usually matter much to me. I only have one doll where I really wanted him to be super flexible. Aesthetic is one reason I went with a traditional thigh piece instead of the kind I often see people making now, where the thigh itself is a cup joint and the hip is a peanut joint that lets the doll sit with its knees raised. My personal preference is that I don't find that jointing system very attractive, and I would rather have a pretty and shapely thigh that doesn't move as well, but looks beautiful in a skirt with a high slit. I did use a peanut joint in this doll's elbow because it was the best way to give it any semblance of mobility, but her range of motion is still super limited. She's better than a single jointed doll would be, but she can bend her arms to about a 45-degree angle. I think I could improve this by radically changing how I approach the jointing of her elbow, but it would also be less attractive, so I'll have to decide how much that matters to me, especially since I don't know if I'm even going to continue the project long term. It is neat to be able to make your own doll bodies, and overall I think I did a decent job for my first time pursuing such a project. It challenged me in a lot of ways I wasn't ready for, forcing me to think about doll mechanics in a format that didn't really get along with my brain. It's not something that comes naturally to me, that's for sure, and I didn't share a lot of progress photos because of how difficult it was to get this to go together in a way that I really wanted. Getting it finished and actually strung and put together was a big relief. But as soon as I shared photos of the finished project, I was greeted with unwanted critique I definitely had not asked for, pointing out things people thought I did wrong that I had not done wrong at all. So even the completion of the project was kind of soured for me, and it sort of took the wind out of my sails. Either way, it was an interesting learning experience. The hardest part of the project was the knees, which I'm overall happy with, but I need to reprint the joint pieces slightly smaller because they're a bit too tight of a fit right now, and it makes the knees gap in front. Otherwise, there aren't too many changes to make, maybe a little more sanding in some places to smooth them out, but I don't know if I'll continue this any further. I'll probably take a break from sculpting for a while, but at least I can be sure that I gave it a good try and I did alright in the end. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.